Hey everyone, it is Jen with Laughing Lotus Wellness. And of course, I have my sidekick and bestie, Sue, with me today from the podcast. So, Midlife Humor Gurus is our podcast, and I just wanted to invite her in. I have not been around for a minute, so I thought I would speak to that. And then I thought she and I would just have some conversation, much like we do in our podcast, and kind of just talk about some of the questions and things that we've probably learned in midlife that we're kind of trying to roll the most with these days. I think it's kind of fun to get an update from she and I, depending on what we've got going on. Always learning and expanding our midlife lessons. So I have not been around for a minute, and I just want to say that I've had a wedding. Two of my very best friends on the planet got married this last weekend. So I have definitely been incognito on socials and trying to just kind of hold space for my coaching clients and my connections there, and then doing all of the events for the wedding. So now I'm done back, landed in Minnesota, and trying to kind of get back into the swing of all things business and Laughing Lotus Wellness and holding space for midlife revolution. So that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about today. If you're new here, please say hey. If you're coming in, we use StreamYard to do our broadcast. What can happen is you can sign in, and unless StreamYard knows who you are, you will show up as this rando person. Please say, hey, it's so-and-so. We'd love to know you're here. And then, of course, if you've got feedback, questions, anything as we go, Sue and I love engaging with our audience. So please feel free to pop in, ask a question, throw things out there. Our best podcasts are honestly motivated and inspired by other people's questions. I mean, I don't know if you agree, Sue, but I feel like that's
Totally
definitely we've had some really rocking conversations because of all of that. So we are here today, Sue. Here's my thought. I am focused on kind of midlife value sets. We talk a lot about that. And for me, it's sort of like your midlife lessons. Would you be willing to share, and do you have one? If you don't have one ready, I'll talk about mine. Is there like a lesson, a midlife value lesson that you're functioning from right now that you're really kind of sending energy to? Because mine shift, right? I mean, I have lots of them, but then I feel like in moments, I'm definitely working really diligently in a sort of an area of it. Do you have anything that comes to mind for you about what you're kind of working in right now?
It's so simple, but it's something that I've ignored my whole life. And it is stop caring about what other people think of you. And as a section 1, subsection lowercase a, stop doing what you think other people want you to do.
God, praise Jesus. I mean, let's and so speak to me. I love this. Is there, I mean, and only if you're willing, right? So if I ask you something, you're like, hell no, I'm not talking about that. Don't. But do you think there's an area of your life where you're noticing it that you're really kind of like, I think what's nice is for people listening to like, give me an example of a space or a way that you're trying to do this work.
All of it. Honestly, all of it. And it does come in subsets, because that's how I live my life, because I'm an English person. So I go subsets. But the idea of who it is that society thinks that we're supposed to be,
yes,
which is who our ancestors have kind of kowtowed to, right? Is that a word, kowtow?
It is now.
It is now. I made it up. We're in the dairy. I'm in the dairy state. So that's what I'm going with. But also the idea of going back to the inner child,
mm-hmm,
and reaping out of that who you were as a small child and what brought you joy,
mm-hmm,
and then bringing that back into your adult life.
Yeah.
And really trying to integrate that back into quote unquote societal norms.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean by that is, I am a nature person. I'm an animal person. That's who I've always been.
Absolutely.
And when I was a little girl, it was this constant bond that I had with everything alive. I have a friend who, she told me, I met her when I lived in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
She told me the first time she saw me and I was walking towards her, this was later after we'd become friends and got close. She said, I swear to God, bluebirds were flying around your head. And she says, and wildlife creatures were at your feet as you were walking towards me. And she said they were in cartoon form.
Yep.
She said she just had this vision. And that is the whole idea of me just being in tune, in touch with nature. And as a kid, I got made fun of for that very, very strongly. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of beat it out of my system. Mm-hmm. That's just one aspect.
Right.
But the other one too is, as a woman, you have expectations about you. you can't cause any problems.
Yeah.
You can't raise any red flags. Don't bring attention to yourself.
Right.
Be small.
Right.
And I'm done with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Not
absolutely.
that I'm coming in like a bull in a china shop or anything like
Oh,
that.
I am.
But sometimes I am too. And the thing is, though, sometimes when you feel like you're being that way, you're not. It's just that other people have an expectation of you.
Exactly.
So it looks a lot bigger to them.
Exactly. Exactly. I think that's so well said. And I think for me that living out loud and living in your full essence. And for me, I use the word rebel, which I know for some people has different connotation. I'm such a language nerd, but for me, it's like, yeah, I'm ready to have a voice and I'm ready to be heard. And I'm ready to even if I make you uncomfortable and you don't like me, but I'm standing in my truth and I'm saying something that I think people need to hear, that's going to resonate for the people that need to hear it. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't, it's like, bless you, namaste, see you later. That's totally fine. I'm okay with that, which took me a really long time to get okay with, the not being liked, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And I think I spent a lot of my life trying to be. And I think so there's something really beautifully rebellious about nope. If you don't like me, you don't like me. That's cool. That's fine. Right. And I respect that. Also, I'm not going to keep watering myself down so that you can be more comfortable. So I think, a piece of it is for me, rebelliousness is about speaking into the heart of something and being really authentic. And it's just, again, having that voice, even if it makes people uncomfortable. So to me, that's rebel. Rebel's going to call out the shit that needs to be worked on or fixed or different. And again, that's going to make some people distinctly uncomfortable. So again, the message, I always believe the message lands where it needs to land. It lands with whom it needs to land with. And so that's taken me a long time, I think 40 plus years to really kind of be okay with that. And so I love that. I know where you're going with just stop worrying about what other people think. Don't water yourself down to be where somebody else is. Right. So this is a really beautiful one. I think for me that, and what mine is tied into, and we've talked a lot about this, is grace. So my thing that I have to struggle with a lot is this idea of grace that I was raised with. And it's not because somebody did it to be a jerk. Gracefulness is not bad, right? Social grace is something I think I was just really trained into, culturally. And that is both a nice thing, but also a socially acceptable thing, right? So there's kind of this twofold layers of this that I think takes a lot of energy to work through. But I was thinking yesterday about midlife values, right? So this is what I speak a lot about. It's what is your midlife value? And one of the questions I want to drop in here for anyone who might be listening is, and one of my colleagues who is a mentor of mine, brilliant therapist. I mean, so smart. And he said to me, the biggest midlife question is this good enough? And I'm amazed I remembered it, because in the midst of all of my stress in grad school, I can't believe I even took this nugget and tucked it away somewhere. And so this is kind of one of the questions that I ask myself a lot. And so it's one of the things that I think can be a really beautiful, pivotal, self-assessment, if you will, is this good enough? Is my career good enough? Is my marriage good enough? Is my partnership good enough? Are my friends good enough? Now, I don't mean you're judging others. How am I feeling when I'm in these environments, right? And so one of the things that I've definitely done with time, two of my biggest values, and you're going to hear me talk about it incessantly, are time and energy. So I want to talk about missing out on business time it's been a minute, right? So what makes me think I can do that? Right. So somebody else in business would be like, slacker, effing crazy. You have this business. You're supposed to be on socials. You're supposed to be consistent. You're supposed to, right? I could say should. Yep. And in my life, I've spent a lot of time honoring and witnessing shoulds rather than listening to what felt authentic to me. And I think that what happened in this last little bit was this really huge reevaluation of, if time and energy are two of my greatest resources, I am done living into a space of should, because that doesn't actually end up leaving me feel in alignment. It doesn't. To me, one of my greatest values outside of time and energy is connection and relationship. So the things that I maintained while I haven't been socially fully present have been my connections with my friends, my family, and my coaching clients. So those are things I won't let slide, because that's an epic value of mine, right? Connections and epic value. But so is time and energy. And so to me, really being able to harness this last period of time to be with my friends. I traveled to Utah for 3 weeks. I was gone for a long time. And I've been traveling and visiting out there and doing things for this entire event. So beautiful. And I wouldn't trade any of that. I wouldn't trade any of that time. So it's very interesting that as I've aged, even within my own business, it's like, if it's balance for me and it brings me joy, connection brings me joy, time and energy, I want to spend all of that very wisely. And so yesterday, as I was doing some meditation time and I was talking to some friends and getting kind of caught up in some things, I was thinking about how we decide some of these pieces in our life. And so my imagery, and I don't know if this works for anybody, so you just roll with you. And if you're here, say hey, please say hey, please, like, don't, like, you know, I mean, you can be a fly on the wall, but we love to hear from you. If you relate to anything, say so. If you've got any other thoughts about values you have in midlife, drop them in the comments. We love, love, love that. I think about who's at my table. And this is a really tough thing to think about from a perspective of niceness. So when people want to come into your world, right? And I want you to look at, you know, who's sitting at your table. And I want you to understand you have lots of people in your life. So there's going to be the primary people, your very closest people are sitting at your table with you. And I want you to think that, right, I'm choosing wisely. And all of us have heard 9 million times, whether it's Tony Robbins or whomever, like, you're a culmination of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. Well, I have been very choosy about that. I've gotten very choosy. I've gotten very, and when I say choosy, that sounds bitchy. I mean intentional. I'm very conscientious about who's sitting with me. Mm-hmm. And I am made up of finite time and energy. I wish I wasn't. I wish there was 4 of me. And so sometimes in your world, you'll have people kind of come in, and I was just at a wedding with a gazillion people. I mean, there was a lot of people, right? And I've got, you know, friends, past, present, et cetera. You've got seasons with people, you've got all this stuff. And then people kind of, if they want to come back in, I now have to evaluate what my table's looking like. So this is my reference. You choose yours. This is my symbolism. I like having this kind of like, way of looking, this lens of looking at things. And so for me, you know, I look around and I'm careful because I know that the people sitting at my table are the people that are holding space for me. They are supporting me. They see me. They validate our relationship. They're mutual. I'm really aware, right? And so I want you to be thinking about, you know, is this enough? Whatever that is for you. Who is at your table? Really take a minute and look around at who is at your table. And so these are values of mine, right? Connection, time, and energy. And time and energy are 2 of your greatest resources. And everything to me culminates for connection, if that makes sense, right? So my ultimate thing is always going to be about connection with other people. And so, yeah, so it's hard because, right, I had an old friend come in and she was like, hey, can we connect? And I was like, bless you, I love you. And I do. And I'm so grateful for that season. Right now, I'm in a season. I'm very busy. I have to throw all my energy back into my business. I have been very, you know, distracted doing things that were worth my time and energy. That was where I was throwing all of it. Beautiful. That's great. Now I'm back. Now I have to reassess and I have to then again, step into that valuing of the business and the time that I spend there, right? Time and energy. So if I say that I can do something, right, this is really hard. This is really hard stuff because the last thing I ever want to do is hurt someone's feelings, right? And you can feel that. That's my grace speaking. Right. And, right. And so, and I just want to speak to that because I think that that's really tough. It's like when I look at my wheelhouse right now, the people that are at my table, I can take really good care of that because I really do honor and care that I value that who is at my table gets seen, loved, held, and supported. So I know it's funny. It's like a resume. Like I want to do a good job at that. And if I'm spread so thin, I'm actually not really able to show up for the people that are sitting at my table. Right. Right. So if you met on the table, you've got your table, it's intimate. This is my like island. There's other parts of the house. It doesn't mean I don't have other people. It doesn't mean that I don't have friends in the kitchen or friends in the living room or family here and here, right? You have people around you all the time, but who is the table holders? I mean, they're your people. And so I think that's really where I'm at is right now, if I know I've got limited time and energy, the old me would have said, oh, maybe later. Oh, right. Made an excuse or maybe not answered. Maybe I wouldn't have said anything. Maybe I would have promoted something down the road because like that sounds nicer. I've done so much work that I'm like, I would be inauthentic if that's where I showed up right now because I just know that that's the state of the way that things are right now. And so even though it was hard, I sent a very honest message back. And so I didn't just go away. I didn't ghost. I didn't write all those socially like, oh, and here's the thing, it's about being kind, but what is kind? If I ghost you because I'm uncomfortable, is that kind? if I momentarily might hurt your feelings a little bit by just saying, look, I'm made up of finite energy and time. And right now I just really don't have it. Because my dance card's full. That's what I'm gonna say. My dance card's full, which sounds dumb, but right? My dance card's full, right? It's just one way to think about it. It's like right now, this is where I can really do my energy, and extra just doesn't fit. So for right now, I think it's being attuned to that and being authentic. And so I just try to send a really loving message back that was fully honest about that. And again, could I hurt someone's feelings? Absolutely. Is that my intention? Absolutely not. But to me, is it kinder for my vibe? Is it kinder to just lean in and go, I'm really sorry, I don't have the time right now. This is where I'm sitting and it's not personal. Right. This is the season I'm in. This is a season where I knew you. Right now, the seasons don't necessarily match up and it's not personal. It's life. And so that took me so much work and personal growth to just show up that way and not angst about it for 4 days before I sent it and 4 days after. That is a big leap. But it's living fully in alignment into the value set that I have, right? That is what backs me as a foundation. And I think that's some of the stuff that I'm really trying to lean into. And it's what I'm asking anybody who's listening to. Can you lean into that? Can you lean into your values? That can you trust that your values are coming directly from your soul and they are your most beautiful guides? And if you trust that and lean into that, I do feel like things really come together. Honestly, and I think this is really interesting and I would love to hear your take on this. When I've leaned in authentically with people, even if I'm saying something that I'm like, this might be really hard to hear, this might not sound very nice, even if that's not how I mean it, people by far and away respond really effing well. It shocks me every time. I will be sweating balls about it and I'll go lean into something and I'll have a conversation like, oh my God, I'm stressed out on the inside. I'm losing my shit. And then I have a conversation and it just goes well.
Yeah.
And I just think it's because if people know your heart for real, they also understand you're not showing up to be a dick. Whatever it is you're saying or doing, if you're showing up and you're speaking from the heart, I always just feel like that lands with people so honestly, and it feels in alignment. And so I think that's one of those big pieces I know I'm trying to live into. And so I would tell you, what are your values? What do you value most in midlife? Please list them because we love to hear. Are you living into that? That's alignment, right? That's what I'm teaching people all the time in coaching. Are you living into it? What do we need to adjust so that you can live into your alignment? What kinds of questions can you be asking yourself to do a check? Is this enough? What else am I needing? How am I feeling about this? I really feel like having those questions and mine would be, is this worth my time and energy?
Mm-hmm.
So since time and energy are two of my biggest values, that's what I would ask myself. Is whatever I'm doing, wherever I'm holding space, is it worth my time and energy? And if it isn't a hell yes, I have to step back and I have to reevaluate that. Doesn't mean it's broken, bad, wrong, indifferent. Okay.
Right.
But I do want you to step back and go, okay, is this worth my time and energy? That's one of my questions. And it's always going to be because those are two of my greatest value sets. So what are your thoughts on that? So I know that's like a lot, but I just wanted to what do you think about the table concept? Is there anything I said that not anything for you, but I just would love to hear from you. What do you think about that idea and living in alignment and the truth, maybe being uncomfortable might still be the way to go to be authentic? What are your thoughts about some of that?
Oh, I think the more uncomfortable you are, the more right thing you're doing. Probably. Because that's what we get used to that. We get used to, don't, like I said before, don't hurt anybody's feelings. Just do it and make them happy.
Right.
And I do think that, the old me definitely would have been floored if anybody had said to me something along the lines of what you were saying, I don't really have space for anyone new. You're not saying I don't have space for you, specifically one person, right?
Exactly.
But you are kind of saying that in a way because you're saying, thanks for the offer, but at this time I choose to decline, right?
Yeah, right.
And I think the not so long ago version of myself would have been sent into a tailspin.
Yeah, for sure.
Feeling, well, what? But that comes back into full circle of caring about what other people think.
Exactly. And that's the piece where I do care. I never would want to do something that would hurt someone. I'm never going to intentionally lean into that space. But also, if I value myself and my authenticity enough, if I value the journey that I'm having, and right now, I can't say this any firmer. I am so effing crystal clear about what matters and who matters.
Right.
that I have really definitely developed a skill or a way of living my midlife that I'm like, if it is not on this dance card, it's
Right.
not, there's no space at the end. And it's not to be a jerk.
Right.
It's, I know myself, and how many times have I spun myself out accommodating? And I really want that word to be really like loud and clear. Just talked to the client coaching this morning about this word. She's like, I just feel like I go do life and I'm so strong in this one area of my life and my business. I'm a boss. At home, I accommodate.
Yeah.
So this is such a common conversation that we're having in midlife. It's like, when can we stop accommodating everybody else's needs, how I look, what I'm worried someone's going to think about me or who I am or how I'm showing up? When can we release that to make space to be fully in alignment for ourselves and what we really value in our lives?
Right.
And what was really sweet was one of my friends said, she was like, I really value your honesty. And I'm like, well, I hope you meant that, because I'm going to lean into that for you.
Yeah.
And I meant it not as a jerk. Like, if this is one of the things you say you respect about me, I'm hoping you can let this land and know that it isn't personal. It's right now, this is what I can do. And it's again, but that is to overdo myself, to overschedule. We have all done this. I mean,
Right.
if you're listening to this and you've not done this, please, dear Yoda, teach me your ways so that I can live a different life. But like, I feel like all of us do this, and that accommodating. And what that accommodating turns into, you guys, it can look like resentment, poor boundaries, you're exhausted, you're tired, right? All of it. So what happens is, when we don't take a look at it, is it turns into these symptoms, these sort of side effects that can really kind of eat up our good juice and our good energy. And so even though, right, I made a choice, like I've made choices about relationships, I've made choices with my time, I have been very like busy and not in my business the same way that I normally have been. That was absolutely an intentional choice I made based on my value set. My connections and my love for my people trumps business extras.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else can run on its bare minimum bones until I'm ready and I'm back and I can fully say, I'm really present here. I was not fully present. I was fully present where I wanted it to be with my people. Yeah. Now I can come back in and go, okay, cool. So there's all sorts of those value pieces. And I'm hoping as you're listening, you're kind of like, okay, there. That's what we're talking about. And I want to say too, Sue and I are in a constant state of progression in this. Don't you think? I mean, don't you feel like we're constantly evolving? It's not like we've arrived, right? Like, it's not like we're going to do this once. I have to do it over and over and over again.
For sure. And sometimes you have that backward slide because for whatever reason.
Yes, because you're human. Absolutely. Yeah. And we all do. And but I think just if we're from a mind space of looking at really what matters to us and are you functioning in that realm, I feel like you're always going to find yourself standing on firmer ground. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be so much happier as a human being in general because your energy is not distributed all over the place like a big leaky faucet. Right? I want you to think like that's what we're like. If we're not really like preserving and holding space for our boundaries, then it's diffused everywhere. And that never feels good to me. It actually just makes me feel like I'm totally strung out, if I'm being really honest.
Right.
And so it's a thought process. It's like, how do I want to show up and how do I want to be in this? But other thoughts, other values, anything you want to throw out there, Sue, that was just kind of that was a lot. But
well, I think the idea of going back and being honest and, specifically you're being honest with other people, but you're also being true to yourself. And I think that the idea of saying, oh, I don't know if I want to say this because I don't want to hurt that person's feelings. I've had conversations with people before. Well, I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to hurt your feelings. And to be honest with you, I was so hurt by that because my thought process was, no, honestly, but this is why though, coming from that standpoint, when someone finally when you kind of get an idea from somebody about why it is that they've been absent. Yeah. And then finally, like you almost trap them a little bit. Mm-hmm. Not to sound like a psycho or anything, but when the conversation finally does arise, and it could be years. Yeah. Yeah. But my thought process in that is, my initial reaction, not response, but reaction is, how dare you dictate my feelings?
Absolutely.
I think it's objective. I think that it's kind of like what you said, when you have these conversations, mm-hmm. you're surprised by how well it's received. And I think that it's going to be better received to be honest with somebody at the onset, rather than circle back around while they're questioning why it is that you disappeared.
Right.
And then you say, well, I kept you guessing all those years because I didn't want to hurt your feelings. If that's the case, I mean, there are other reasons why you know, maybe fall out with somebody or whatever. And then the conversation just isn't had, and it is what it is. But if that person then comes back around and says, why are we not friends anymore? Why did this happen? Then just be honest and say, well, I was kind of coward. And that's not true. That's not fair. But I think that's when you pull out the honesty card.
I think
that's when you stop tiptoeing around it. That's when you actually say, okay, here's why.
Yeah.
And then, you know, maybe be humble and say, I'm sorry I didn't tell you before. I just didn't know how to tell you.
Exactly.
If you turn it around and say, well, I was this way because of you, that's not going to be well received.
Right.
But if you, like what you're saying is, if you just say, here's my honest truth, you throw it out there, now it's on them for how they want to receive it.
That's exactly right. It's now in their hands to decide what they're going to do with it. And I will give you all psychology 101 secret here. Truth. This is brass tacks truth. Human beings do not like mystery. I don't know if you know this.
Don't like what?
Mystery. We think we do. We like it in a book. We maybe like it when we're having a baby, but the rest of the time we really don't like it. And so what happens is when we are left in a state of mystery, what we do as human beings is we create beautiful stories between our ears. Mm-hmm. All of us. I do the same damn thing. Makes me effing crazy. When we are left to reconfigure on our own, we make up fantastic stories. And 99.9% of the times, and I will tell you this is factual from being a clinician in an office for over 22 years, you will make up shit that is wrong.
It's not true.
It's not true.
Right.
It's absolutely not factual. And so what will happen is you're having an entire experience and a story between your ears that has no basis in truth. And you're going to walk outside and you're going to have this whole entire experience. Now I've got big thoughts about it. I've got big feelings about it. And I'm formulating this conversation. Maybe I'm going to have. You're having this whole entire journey and it's all built on bullshit. Okay. So right. And I'm saying this because this is literally, I think, one of the basis I have in value set as well, which is let's just effing talk about it. Right. So in yoga training, we talk about ahimsa, which is do no harm. And I love this philosophy. It's actually a philosophy in medical fields, social work. One of our biggest foundational sets that we believe in is do no harm first. And so what I want you to think about, right, is that we have this idea that, like you said, that somehow telling the truth and hurting someone's feelings is going to be really bad. But is that actually worse than leaving someone hanging?
Right.
With the story they're going to have between their ears, which I will guarantee you is going to be worse than the one that you're actually going to say outside your face. Because if I don't respond to my person, who it could be whatever, it could be about a job, it could be a friend, it could be a million things. And maybe I'm dating someone for 3 months and all of a sudden I fall off the map, right? Which is horrible. But the truth is that the truth being spoken is going to be so much easier than the story that you will ever create between your ears, which is way more painful.
Well, because then the story on their part can come to an end.
That's exactly right.
We now it's the end, roll credits, and you can walk out of the theater and you can be done.
And I know the answer. And whether that hurts me a bit, right? Again, listen, I had a conversation with a friend. This was years ago. We went out to dinner and her family was not in the area. So her family was very much her friends, which I totally understood. And I had a new baby. We were sitting at dinner and I said, like, hey, I just kind of feel like, we're distant. And she was like, I just think right now you're in a really big state where you are so busy and intentional about where you are that makes it hard for us to get together. And that's something that's really important to me. And I tell people, and people are like so offended. They're like, you were a new mom. I can't believe she would say that. I'm like, I was effing great. I think it's so funny, people's response. And I'm like, I was grateful.
Right.
She didn't just go away and ghost me.
Right.
But yeah, my value right now is I'm a new mom and I'm very busy and I'm very focused on that. That is where my energy and time can go. There's not 4 of me. So I can't change that. I didn't look at her and get angry. I was like, if that's where you are and this is where I am, and right now we're just not on the same path, I'm not going to be mad about that. And I wasn't. I was sad about it, understandably, because I loved her. She was one of my very best friends.
Right.
And if I can't meet your needs right now, then let's just call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting to me when I'll tell a story, people are like so offended for me. And I'm like, I'm not offended though. I appreciated she didn't just go away and not tell me. She was super honest. She was like, this is where I am. This is what I need. And I just know right now that's really tough for you.
Yep.
Done and done. We had a great dinner where I don't have bad feelings about her. We're in contact on the side of things in life where she's not at my table, but she's 4 rooms removed.
Sure.
That's okay for me. Right. So I just want you to think about, and everybody has to have this journey. Like, I get it, right? This is all my work I've been doing in my life and things like that. And that came in layers. I didn't just land there, but I really want to give you the opportunity as you listen to Sue and I talk about this, what pieces of this can you sit with? What are you willing to live with? And for me, I would much rather someone be super blatant and super like, this is where I am. This is what I need. This is how it is. This is my table. And do I have space at that right now or not? And I really think just being really legit honest with people and being authentic about how that is for you is really important. And will that shift and change with time? Of course it does. Who is at your table will shift and change, right?
Yeah.
And you have more space sometimes. Yes, because sometimes your life is less busy or chaotic or whatever, right? You have seasons. So, right, like Zach and Aaron's season of empty nesting, like he's picking golf back up, like he's busy doing this. I've been traveling, like spending time in other things. Our space, and then when space gets made, you decide what you want to fill it with, right? Energetically, time-wise, your value-wise, what am I going to fill my space with? Mm-hmm. Those are pieces that then you're reconfiguring all the time. So I just want to invite those kind of questions and ideas into your kind of journey so that you have some different ways to think about it and some things to consider as you're making your decisions and what's really important to you. So Sue, any other questions, values, anything else that you want to throw in there? Because those are just kind of so I said connection, time, and energy. Do you have words for yours about not caring about what other people think? Like, do you have is there a word or 2 words that you feel like encompass?
Honestly, no, not at the moment, but you have given me something to think about.
Yeah.
So now I feel like I have homework, which is good because I've never minded homework. I really haven't. I've always loved homework. I'll be honest.
Same. I'm nerdy that way.
But yeah, no, I actually appreciate you bringing that up because I think that it is nice to be able to kind of distill it down into something succinct. Yeah. Because then you're not sitting there with all this extra verbiage in your head going, is this the right move for me? Is this the person that I want to spend time with? I think that if you slice it into one word thought processes, your brain can go right quick to help you make a decision on the spot.
And I think for me, when you're talking about, pleasing other people, what do they think? For me, and I don't know that this is a word, and I'm just going to throw it out there for coaching reasons. So I'm, again, Sue, take it or leave it. I almost think authentic. Am I living authentically?
Yeah.
Am I being authentic to myself? If I'm worried about what you think and what your opinion is going to be, am I being authentic to myself? And so to me, authenticity might be.
I think fulfillment might be one too.
I love that.
I mean, am I just doing something because it's fluffy and I'm pleasing somebody, or is it actually filling me up?
Exactly.
With wisdom
exactly. So I think as you go through this, one of the things that I would really encourage you to do, any of you, is sit down that you're listening and look at your value sets: freedom, time, energy, authenticity, fulfillment, purpose. I can go through and listen, all of that. Are you loving, honoring, and holding space for yourself? And then defining some of those questions so that if you have a word that you really want to focus your value laden kind of energy at, is there a phrase that fits that mind? Is this worth my time and energy? Right? For Sue, is this fulfilling me? Right. You can start to see, if I find a word, then I can find a question, and this can be kind of my go-to when I'm in a circumstance and I'm like, I need to think about this. That's a really neat way to kind of create a mathematical equation for yourself and really look at your intentions and see if they're actually in alignment for what you want to do.
I like that.
Yeah. So just kind of a heads up. So I just wanted to drop in Sue and I. So this is, again, Sue Olson. She is my bestie. We're friends from high school. We have our podcast called Midlife Humor Gurus. We are always bringing in midlife sort of subjects, but then also infusing our personalities, our humor into that, and helping share part of our journey journeys of others. And then we love when people come in and offer us questions. Like I said, some of our best podcasts are like, hey, my sex life has kind of dried up. What do I do about that? Hey, I feel like pissed off and hormonal. What the hell do I do with that? Like, we love when people come in and offer us questions, because we'll create podcasts directly speaking to the question that you're dropping in for us.
Right.
So please do that. But any other final thoughts, anything, Sue, before we close for the day? Because I know you have places to be, so I want to respect your time as much.
Yeah, I have a few dogs waiting for me. No,
Yep.
I really appreciate you inviting me in to do this. And I would actually love to truly selfishly, because I love being able to talk to you. I'd love to do this more. So hopefully we can make that happen.
I would too. So, again, there's lots of ways to hang out with Sue and I. We have a community on Facebook called Midlife Repurposed through Femme Power, Joy, and Humor. That's one space you can find us. Obviously, the podcast, locate that anytime on Spotify and Apple. Again, that's called Midlife Humor Gurus. Drop us in some questions, thoughts, suggestions, topics. We love that. When we do lives, I'm going to try to pull Sue in a little bit more regularly in lives from time to time, just so that everybody gets access to her that way as well. So you can have us all sorts of different places, right? It just kind of depends on your favorite area to kind of go and lean into. But we really believe that, midlife can be a revolution. And I think that's the biggest thing that I coach into is I want you to have an awakening and not a crisis, that we get to choose how we want to show up to this time in our lives. And I feel like this is such a beautiful and incredible season in a million ways. And it's kind of been dismissed and covered up. And so we land in midlife and we're unlearning and relearning so much material and so much about our narratives and conditioning, things we've learned in our lives. And we're starting to be in this beautiful space where we're like, I'm going to ditch that shit. Like, it's like a piece of luggage we've opened up. Like, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. And I'm looking out here. I'm like, but I'm going to bring this. I'm going to bring this. I'm going to bring this. That's what midlife is to me. And so I just feel like we have so much joy bringing some of those concepts, breaking them open and talking about them and making them digestible and adding in, of course, our infusion of humor and the way that we see things so that you can have a different kind of journey and experience. And that's what we hope to do. So we hope you'll follow along. We hope you'll, like I said, reach out to us, ask questions, share comments. We love, love, love that. But until next time, this is Sue and I signing off. And you can look for that podcast. Like I said, come and follow along or find our community and ask to join that. We love, love, love to have more people in there to share space and help us to kind of support us being rebellious revolutionaries. I will always say I'm a rebel and I'm looking for rebel energy. And so my people that are at my table are very commonly holding that same rebellious revolutionary kind of energy. So come on in and join us in our table, right? The one that we're creating in our space. We would love to have you join us there. So any final thoughts, my dear friend?
No, thank you for having me. It's been lovely being at your table. We're at a little coffee table right now.
We are a little coffee. That's how we do every single thing we do. So I'm so grateful for you. Love you so much. And again, everyone, we'll catch you on the flip side too. We'll be back around for another live sometime, but otherwise you can catch our podcasts. They are all over the place. So go catch those if you're interested. And we will see you next time, everybody. Take care.